Hello everyone, Steve Peterman here. This will be a tutorial on how to use the online Soaker recipe calculator, where you can add a Soaker to a recipe that you already have. Now, a few years back, I'd created a full-blown spreadsheet for bread recipes, and that included a Soaker section. But it may be that you have a recipe that you really like, and instead of recreating that in that spreadsheet, I pulled out the section on Soakers so that a Soaker recipe can be created for an existing recipe. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with Soakers, what they are is a separate batch of ingredients. I'll show you some of those in this table. Barley, flax seeds, oats, and so on, that I did some research and looked up to see what common ingredients are used in Soakers. And then through some experimentation, I came up with hydration levels. I won't go through the process on how I got these numbers, but in my use, they seem to be pretty close. Okay, they've worked out for me. So anyway, these are some ingredients that people quite often use in Soakers. So those ingredients are added to a separate batch. Water's added to that and then allowed to soak for an extended period of time. I usually let them soak overnight. Then they can be added to your bread to create different profiles, add some flavors, textures, that sort of thing. I really like Soakers. I've used them all the time. And so what this spreadsheet is for is adding, like I said, adding a Soaker to an existing bread recipe that you have. So what I've had to do is just go through a demo of how the spreadsheet is used, and then after that I'll talk about how, if you're interested, you can access these spreadsheets online and use them for your own bread. Okay, so let's start off with a demo. And here I think I'll use a recipe from Jeffrey Hamelman's book, Bread. This recipe, rustic bread, happens to be posted on the FreshLoaf. And I think it's a pretty good recipe for demonstrating how the spreadsheet is used. The first thing we need to do is determine the total flour in the recipe, and that's because the Soaker amount is based on a baker's percent. So the weight of the dry ingredients is percentage of the total flour. That means the first thing we need to do is add up all the flour that's in the recipe. So you can go through the recipe and add that up manually with a hand calculator, but I have a little area over here where it'll add it up for you. Let's go through this recipe and add the flours that we find. So the first thing we find is a pre-ferment with a pound of bread flour, 3.5 cups. So I have a little conversion area. Since all this is done in grams, I have a conversion area where you can convert a recipe that's not in grams to grams. So what we have is a pound of bread flour. Using pounds is kind of unusual, I think, but it's okay, we'll go with it. So we've got 16 ounces of bread flour in there. That's 454 grams. All right, so we put that in here. Let's take a look what else is in there. So we have our bread flour. In the final dough, we have another 10 ounces of bread flour. So we'll convert that to 83. By the way, here's something kind of interesting. Let's go back here to 16. He's got a pound, 3.5 cups of bread flour. Well, Also in this conversion section are cups of flour. So if we put in 3.5 cups, the interesting thing is the difference here. This is why it's always better to use weight measurements than volume measurements, because this can vary now. So there's a difference here. Well, a cup of flour, the weight of a cup of flour can vary considerably depending on how much air is in it, maybe the kind of flour that's in it. So you can get some variations here. This amount is based on the weight of ingredients from the King Arthur website. So let's open that up. So if we do a search for bread flour, what we'll see is it's got different ones, but here's basic bread flour is 120 grams per cup. Okay, so 3.5 cups is going to end up being 420 here. So that's just an aside about why it's better to use weights if you can. But if your recipe doesn't have that, then you can use this section. So let me explain a little more about this. This particular conversion here is for bread and AP flour, because flours vary in weight by volume. This section here is for whole wheat flour. And let's just go back here and take a look. So if we look at whole wheat, scroll down here, it's 113 grams per cup. So that's why I have these different sections. So a cup here, if we put a cup here, we see the difference in weight. So that's a conversion there. Now it could be that you're using a flour that is neither bread or whole wheat, and that's what this section is for. So let's go here, back again, and let's say that you want to use spelt. Spelt flour is 99 grams per cup. So we put in 99 here, and 1 cup, or let's say 1.5 cups. Is going to weigh 149 grams. So that's how this is used. Now these are all based on US cups and ounces. So if your recipe is not based on US cups and ounces, this conversion system here, well, the ounces should work, maybe, I don't know, depends on the system. So if your recipe isn't using US cups as a standard, then this conversion area may not work for you. Okay, so let's get back over here. If we look at our recipe again, there's 10 ounces of bread flour, 6 ounces whole wheat or rye, or a mixture. So let's assume that the recipe split those up. Instead of 6 ounces, come back and we've got 3 ounces. Okay, so that's 85. That would be one of them, 85 for the other one. So we end up with, if we look, that takes care of all the flour that was in there. So we end up with 907 grams of total flour. So we put that in here. Our next decision is what baker's percent we want to use for the soaker. Now, baker's percent will be the weight of the dry ingredients. I'll show that in a minute here. The weight of the dry ingredients relative to the total flour. That's baker's percent. So let's say we want to use 5%. And the next question is, how do you want to soak this? You can use room temperature water or boiling water. In some cases, for some ingredients, like perhaps fried chops, these are hard ingredients, coarse cornmeal, that you may want to use boiling water instead of room temperature water because it's a little easier to hydrate to them. So there's a choice there that you can make. The next is extra water percent. So when you're soaking these ingredients, you want to make sure that everything gets hydrated real well. And what I usually do is double up the water that's needed to do that. And the reason is that way I make sure that there's no dry spots and that everything gets hydrated equally in the soaker. So I double up on the water. So I use 100% here. But you don't have to. If you want to use less or more, you can. Here's the issue that may come up. There's a process called autolyse, I think that's how you pronounce it, where you combine just the flour for your final dough, with the water, the final water, and let that soak. And that creates some enzyme actions that enhance the bread. Now, if you're using a soaker that has extra water in it, that water is not available to the autolyse. And so you may find that it's dry or stiff or than you expect. So there's a couple ways around that. What I normally do is go ahead and add the soaker to the final, or to the autolyse as well, because there's extra water in here. So you get the right amount of water in there. And so far I haven't seemed to have any problem with that. Okay. So that way you get the right amount of water for your autolyse. But if you want, you can also decrease this 50%. I mean, you could even go 0 if you don't want to add any extra water. But then you run the risk that maybe your soaker won't be consistently hydrated. You may have some dry spots in there. So I usually just go ahead and put in double up on the water, but you can adjust that if you want. So the next thing we need to do is determine the ingredients that we'll be using. So I get that's from this list here. So let's say we want to put in some flax seeds. I like flax seeds. Let's put in 50% of the soaker ingredients, 50% flax seeds. And let's say millet, for instance. I don't know if that'd be a good combination or not. 30%. I don't think I've ever done that combination, but this is just for demonstration purposes. And coarse cornmeal. It says up here I need to add 20%. Okay, so 20%. Okay, so that's it. So this is our recipe right here. Oh, I forgot. You can if you want to add salt to it, you can do that here. Or if you, now I have a little note that for a fraction of a percent, you have to put it in like if you wanted a 0.5%, you can't put in 0.5. It thinks that's 50%. You have to put in 0.5%. Okay, so that would be the grams of salt that you'd be adding. So now this is our recipe. You'd weigh out 23 grams flaxseed, 14 millet, 9 of cornmeal, add your salt, and this is the water that you would put in, or 83 grams of water that you would put in your batch and let that soak overnight or for however long it needs to be soaked. And that's your recipe. Now, since we had extra water in our soaker, in order to get the hydration correct for the final bread, for the final dough, we need to take out the extra water that was in the soaker. So that's what this is. This is free water. We need to subtract that from the final dough water. Okay, so because we got extra water up here, 43 grams. We need to subtract that. Now you can manually do that, but if you look at the recipe, let's look at it. The final water is 12.5 ounces of water. So let's put in 12.5, 350. So according to the recipe, the final water would be 354. So that means the new final water will be 313. So if you add these two together, you end up with that. So that's it. We've got a recipe. It's told us how to adjust the final water So now we're ready. We can go ahead and put in the soaker in the final batch, and it'll have these ingredients in there. So that's a demonstration of how the soaker calculator will work. So one advantage of using this system is that you can make a batch, try it out, see if you like it. Maybe you want to make a change. We didn't like the millet being in there, so we'll just take that out and just go with these two. Or if you want to change the percentage, maybe you want 7.5% instead, and so on. So you can make those changes and quickly make a batch. So that's it. That's how you can use the system. Next, I think I'll go through, if you're interested in this and using this, then I'll talk about how you can access it and use it. By the way, if you have any questions about this, you can leave a comment on the FreshLoaf post that I created. Send me a direct message, or you can leave a comment below for this video. So now let's cover how you can use this, get access to these spreadsheets and use them. These are posted in a public folder for my on OneDrive. And if you'll notice, I have 8 different spreadsheets in this folder, and the link to this folder will be in the FreshLoaf post and below in the description for the video. Now, in order to access this folder, you'll need a Microsoft account. They're free to get, and you more than likely may already have one anyway. If you use your Outlook for email or Hotmail, or if you have a Windows computer, if you use another application like Word or PowerPoint, then you probably already have a Microsoft account, and you can use your email address for that account to access this. If you don't have a Microsoft account, you can go to the Microsoft.com website and create an account. They're free, it's easy to do, and then you can use that email address to access this. It'll ask you for that when you access that if you're not already logged in to your Microsoft account. Now, the reason why I have so many spreadsheets here is because this is a public folder. That means anyone with a link to this folder can access and edit any of these spreadsheets. Well, the issue is that with Microsoft Online, they've set it up so people can collaborate on the spreadsheets. So it's possible that if you were in one of these spreadsheets and somebody else selected the same spreadsheet, then you would both have the ability to edit that spreadsheet, which can get kind of weird as things start changing without you knowing why. Now, there's a way around that, and I'm unclear whether I want to go ahead and start doing that. You can assign spreadsheets to a particular person, kind of makes them private, but that could really proliferate spreadsheets, and I may not want to do that. But if you end up using this a lot and you would like your own private spreadsheet, well, direct message me or email me, and I'll see what I can do about that. As long as it doesn't get out of hand, I could do that. But say, for instance, you click on one of these, and I would recommend just clicking on one of them at random, so it's unlikely somebody else would be editing it. But if you do click on one, what you'll see if somebody else is in there editing is their little icon, their little profile icon up in the upper right hand corner. So it would show up here that somebody else is using it. Well, let's see, let's go back here. It'll show up in this area. somebody else is using it. So if you open one up and you see that somebody else is using it, we'll back out of it and pick another one. Otherwise, things can get kind of weird. But I think I've got enough of them here that if you just click one of these at random, more than likely somebody else won't be in there editing that. So let's say you come in and you're working with this and you're going to go make the soaker and try it out. Well, once you leave this, let's go ahead and get out of this. It saves what you did automatically. You don't have to do a file save or anything. It just saves it. But since these are public spreadsheets, what I would recommend is that if you want to keep track of what you did, I would recommend you print this out so you'll have a record of it. And the way you can do that is go to File, Print, and that'll bring this up, and you can print that to your local computer, or if you'd rather, you can create it as a PDF. That way you'll have a record of what you did before. The other thing that I would also recommend is that once you print it out, you've got a record of it, is to be generous to the next person that may come in and edit this, is just go ahead and delete everything that's in there. So you just put that on there, put the cell there, and then just delete all the inputs. That way, when somebody else comes in, you don't need to delete these. In fact, if you do, it's going to get a little rid, because those are required. So just go through and delete everything, and it'll save automatically. That way, the next time somebody comes in to that particular spreadsheet, it'll be clean for them. They can start from scratch. Oops, forgot to do these. Okay. So that's how you can access these spreadsheets and save them to your printer or a PDF. Okay, I think that covers the online version of the Soaker recipe calculator. But if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to put those in the comments section below this video or on the FreshLoaf post that I put there. I should also mention that I have a version of this for those people that have the Excel app on their computer. It has a couple extra features where you can edit the soaker water table, or you can add an item to the table if it's not there already. I'll provide a separate video describing those features, so this one doesn't get over long. And I'll put links for that in the description below and on the FreshLoaf site with a link for downloading the spreadsheet. So if you've got the app and you want to try those extra features, you can check that out. Okay, well, thanks so much for listening and watching. I hope that if you use this, you find it useful in creating some really interesting bread. So take care. Bye.